Delta. It just released second quarter results a short time ago and posted a record revenue and an earnings beat, thanks in part to strong U.S. demand. Let's head down to Atlanta now, where Adam Shapiro just sat down with Delta CEO Ed Bastian. Adam, so much for that U.S. recession, huh?
So much for the recession, especially since Mr. Bastian is saying that demand is going to maintain. He's expecting that the good times will continue to fly here at Delta. We are at their corporate headquarters here in Atlanta. We're on the tarmac at Hartsfield International Airport. But listen to what he had to say about the record revenue, $12.5 billion, and the record earnings per share, because it was just the start.
Air travel demand is growing. People sometimes think that air travel demand may be a mature market, or we're growing at a multiple of GDP, particularly in the U.S. So our top line revenues were up 9% in the quarter. That's a trend line we've been seeing for the last couple of years.
So when you talk about demand for air travel, you're almost, every plane is almost full. Your load factor is roughly 90%.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Are you going to add more flights?
Well, we've been growing. Domestically, we're up somewhere between 4 and 5% this year. Internationally, we're growing as well. We're building bigger planes. The plane we're sitting on here, the 330-900neo, which is a new plane, has got more seats on it. It's a larger plane than the 767s that they're replacing. So it's a combination of larger planes, more flights, and but fundamentally behind all that, it's really core demand by the great job our team's doing.
Are you going to be leaning toward Airbus more, say, than Boeing? Because I saw an interview where you talked about the future 797 as a potential replacement for the 57s and 67s that you're flying. Is it a competition right now between Boeing and Airbus for those replacements?
Absolutely, it's a competition. We fly one of the largest airline fleets in the world, and so you need both manufacturers at all times.
One of the analysts I spoke to said that given your load factors right now, it's time to raise prices, and that would also help you return more money to shareholders, which the board did, by the way. You're going to return this year $3 billion. They upped the dividend. But what do you say to that analyst who says it's time for Delta to raise prices?
Well, the marketplace determines when the right time to raise prices are. We're always out there making certain that our prices are fair, that they're competitive, that customers are seeing value for money. We have raised prices this year. We're investing heavily. We're investing this year close to $5 billion in continued improvements. Planes like this, airports, we've got about $12 billion of investments for building new airports. We've got to build larger factories. We've got to build larger planes, because we're not building new airports in the country.
So you've also got the issue of JetBlue, which is going to be coming to market with an offer to go to London in a business class seat they say it'll be a less expensive ticket than the competition. How do you maintain, again, these record revenues and load factors if you're going to be up against that kind of air?
We compete against everybody. We're not worried about what JetBlue or anyone else does. We worry about what Delta. We have a phenomenal partner in London and Virgin Atlantic, and the Delta Virgin Atlantic product from a customer standpoint is top shelf. It's the number one product in the marketplace. We're continuing to grow in London. We're growing in Boston. We're growing, a lot of the Northeast over to Europe.
You also have the issue of the U.S.-China trade war. How is that impacting you?
We haven't seen a big demand impact. We're watching it like everybody does, but our revenues to China are up double digits on a year-over-year basis. And I was just in China a couple months ago. Both in Shanghai and Beijing, we're doing well.
With the traffic that's going to the Atlantic, do you worry about a potential trade war with the EU? The president has threatened that as we go forward.
We watch everything. We worry about everything that's part of this business. Our transatlantic, we had a good summer. I think there was a little caution flag with respect to European point of sale. I think it's a little bit of Brexit and all the macro uncertainties. Also the currency, which you can't forget, as the dollar has strengthened, it's made it more expensive for those European customers to come through their summer holidays in the U.S. So we've had to change around our point of sale strategy and taking more U.S. demand going over to Europe as well.
And you don't see U.S. demand, whether it be to those flights across the Atlantic or even domestically, lightening up. You keep talking about in other interviews how demand is growing domestically, even at the load factors we make.
Yeah, we gave a forecast for the third quarter. Expect our top line to grow 6 to 7%, as well as the full year. We raised our EPS guide. The EPS in the quarter was up 32%, and for the third quarter, we're expecting about a 25% EPS growth. So, demand is strong. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing. Our brand is at a level we've never seen. We have the most valuable brand in the airline industry at Delta, and I think increasingly one of the most valuable consumer brands in the marketplace.
What's happening with Delta and oil prices? In one interview in the past, I saw you were worried about a potential increase of 60% in fuel costs year over year. That was a while ago when you said that, but where do we stand now?
Right now, on a year-over-year basis, oil prices are down. Yeah, so that's another thing that's feeding consumer demand. There's more discretionary income in terms of being able to afford travel in the air as well as on the ground. And right now, while it's bouncing around, it seems to be in a $60 plus or minus range. And when you think about all the uncertainties in the world, what's going on in Iran, we've got a hurricane brewing in the Gulf Coast as we speak this morning, and oil prices are still hanging in the mid 60s. I think we're in a pretty good spot for oil.
Where are you going to look most, do you think? Boeing? The problems with the 737 MAX, I know you didn't buy it, you studied it for a year. Why didn't you go there?
Well, we preferred the Airbus product. So we made a decision a couple of years ago to go the Airbus 321 route and the 321 NEOs relative to the MAX. That was the head-up competition. And we obviously feel good about that decision. Felt good then, continue to feel good today.
Regarding the Airbus-Boeing battle and Delta's business, that plane we were sitting on is a brand new Airbus 330-900 NEO. That's the aircraft that they're using to inaugurate their service. As of today, the first one landed in Shanghai, from Seattle to Shanghai. And I want to show you something, Brian and Alexis. Take a look at the tarmac here at Hartsfield International. That competition between Airbus and Boeing is going to be crucial, with Delta at the forefront, because Delta has to replace its 757 and 767 aircraft in the coming years. And they haven't decided if they're going to go with the Boeing 797, as you heard me ask him, or if they'll go with a variation from Airbus. So there's much more ahead, not only for Delta, but with implications for investors in Boeing.
Adam, real quickly before we let you go, what is the read-through here to earnings season more broadly? This Delta quarter, they had good demand, higher prices, and he told you that demand in China was up double digits. You don't hear that. You're not hearing a lot of that stuff from many other companies.
Right, and keep in mind, though, in regards to Asia, that it's only 10% of Delta's revenue. If you dive deep into the Pacific routes in the earnings report, here's what they did. Capacity grew almost 10%. But that came with a cost, because they can't charge quite as much as perhaps a comparative domestic ticket. Where they make the money, Brian, is on those business class and first class seats, those premium ticket prices. So they have to grow that in the Pacific routes. But again, Pacific only represents about 10% of their business. And finally, he was not too concerned about the China-US trade war. I asked him, by the way, if that might be a worry regarding Europe, and they're not that concerned that that's going to hit their profits.
All right, Adam Shapiro live for us in Atlanta. We look forward to more of your interview with Delta's CEO. Thanks so much.